Hey guys, Chris here, back with a video. It's going to be a little bit different than any of my other videos because most of my YouTube channel is dedicated to wet shaving, which is a great hobby of mine, something I enjoy, but it's starting to become something that's a little bit more of just personal relaxation more than it is, being into the social aspect of it. So I thought I'd do something different and highlight a interest that has sort of developed over the last couple months, and that is folding knives. Now, I work outside, and I do have need for a knife rather routinely. Maybe not as much as most trades, but having a good sharp blade with me has had its benefits. I used to purchase some really horrible knives, and I just figured it was time for me to buy something that I could be proud of, and I would invest the time in getting to learn and know how to sharpen and maintain. When you've got cheap blades, a $20 blade from a hardware store, it's something that you tend to take for granted and abuse more than you probably should. So I want to talk about two knives that are the first two in my collection, and that is the Benchmade Griptilian. This is the full-size model, and the Spyderco Manix 2. I wanted to do this comparison because you may very well be looking at these two blades to pick up your first everyday carry blade and wonder which one is for you. So I want to talk a little bit about the various characteristics of each blade and their pros and cons. The first one we're going to talk about, or the first category we're going to talk about, is weight. Which one of these blades weighs more? Well, there's reasons why one of them weighs more than the other, and those reasons will become apparent to you as we go through the video. But right out of the box, the Spyderco Manix 2 is 5 ounces, and out of the box for the Benchmade Griptilian is 4.7 ounces. Now, I'm sorry, 4.6, I believe, actually. Now, that is with its stock scales, which I have right here. I had these replaced with G10 scales, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the handle, but right out of the box, it was 4.6 ounces. The handle material on them stock, as I said, for the Benchmade, are these Zytel FRN blade scales. They are a very high strength composite polymer, I believe is what it is. But here's the deal: they look, feel, and sound like plastic. Just straight up cheap plastic. They are not, but they definitely sound like it, and for a lot of people that might be a problem. So out of the box, when it comes to the handle scales, the Benchmade just doesn't seem to measure up, in my personal opinion. Now, out of the box for the Manix 2, you have G10 scales. G10 is a fiberglass version of micarta. Micarta is usually, it can be anything from canvas to jean material that's soaked in epoxy, and then it's ground down. Hi, Sam. How are you?
Hi.
Okay, see, that's my son, Samuel. So G10 scales come stock on the Manix 2. It's a pretty well-regarded material, very strong. This one is very grippy. It's got a nice texture to it that sort of feels like a finer sandpaper, so it's got a good grip to it. The ones that are on my Griptilian as of right now are Putnam scales. It's G10. This is the Anzo pattern in orange. And I got it in orange because I always tend to take the expensive things I have and lose them, so I figured I might as well have something that I could see, have some high visibility to it. But G10 scales, these are not so grippy. They've got a texture to them just in their pattern that makes it to where it is a little bit grippier, but it doesn't have the sandpaper-like feel that you get from the G10 in the Manix 2. So right out of the box, which one wins? It's clearly the Manix 2, right? Now, the biggest contribution to weight in these two knives is the liners. Now, the liners in the in the Griptilian, if you can see here, they are not full steel. They don't cover the entire interior of the handle. As a matter of fact, it doesn't have a whole lot of liner at all. So for that reason, you don't have that really sturdy, thick feel, and the strength may be compromised a little bit, but I don't imagine it's measurable, the amount of strength that you're going to lose when abusing this knife. So the scales are milled out to be able to receive that liner very tightly, so it's nested in there very nicely. So no full steel liners in the Benchmade Griptilian. If you get the Mini Griptilian, you will have a essentially it will almost be a full steel liner, because the liners inside of the mini grip are the same ones that are in the full size grip. So they'll shrink the scales a little bit, so more of the interior will be filled with metal than you get here with the full size Griptilian. In the Manix 2, as is clearly apparent, this is full steel liners, and they are thick. They are not skeletonized in any way, so you don't have any weight reduction there. It's just slabs of metal in there. Now, to some people that might be a problem. To me, not so much. To me, it feels more like a sturdy tool when I have this in my hand. So the weight doesn't bother me so much. For you, it might. Your mileage may vary, but yeah. So full steel liners in the Spyderco Manix 2. The locking mechanisms in each of these is somewhat similar. The revolutionary axis lock in the Benchmade Griptilian, it has an omega, like the shape of a Greek omega, character right here that pushes upward on this locking bar right here. And as you pull down, you're going to disengage that bar, and it's going to allow the blade to close. And then it will move out of the way when you open it to deploy the blade. Okay, so just to show you again, and you can kind of see the bar move. The bar moves out of the way, swings clear of the blade, and then the blade opens. This makes for a really smooth opening knife, and I really like the axis lock in here. The Spyderco version, they call the ball bearing lock. Now, the ball bearing lock doesn't have the Omega style spring. It's actually got a coiled spring right here, a stacked spring. It has, it's pushing upward this polymer cage that has a ball bearing nested in it, and I'm gonna see if I can get some light in here to be able to show you. If you can see it. You can see the ball bearing right in there. And that ball bearing goes up and it goes behind the blade. The lockup on them is dramatically different, in my opinion. As I pull this up, it swings rather freely and locks. There's that rounded piece of metal in there. I do have concerns one day about possibly the spring not having enough tension on it, and it will cause the blade to close up on me when I don't want it to. But otherwise, it's a pretty strong lock. The ball bearing lock feels very tight. As you put that in there, you can hear a very audible snap, and you know that that ball is stuck in there, okay? So when it comes to the lockup, I give it fully to the Manix 2, but there is another factor that comes into play with the locking mechanism, and that's the ease of deployment. The Spyderco, or the Benchmade, I find is just buttery smooth with its deployment, and you're ready to roll. I mean, heck, you can even, and I don't want to demonstrate right here, but you can, if you just hold it down here and you flick it, you can get that blade to engage. So the deployment on that is fine. Now, I started with the Griptilian, as I said, and I started using thumb studs. So it took a little bit to get used to the Spidey hole that is, that is the character, the hallmark of Spyderco blades. So it took me a little while to get used to it. Had to loosen the pivot a little bit, but it's easy to deploy now. But if you're looking to get into something that's fairly quick to learn how to deploy. Doesn't take much of a learning curve. The Griptilian has it in spades. The deployment is much smoother in the Griptilian. Okay, blade steels. We got some different blade steels here. Neither one of them bad. Each of them has their flaws and their virtues. In the Griptilian, we have 154 cm tool steel, which is a stainless steel. It's my understanding that is used a lot for the aircraft industry. And then S30V, CPM S30V steel, which was specifically made for cutlery, and it is a super steel as well. Both of these are stainless steels. The Spyderco is a full flat grind, which means that just from here, it just continuously grinds down until you get to the bevel for the cutting edge. This Griptilian is a hollow grind. It's got some facets to it. It goes down here, and then it gets to the cutting edge. In terms of which one is better, I'm not exactly certain. I haven't done enough to form an opinion about it. But what I will say is that this knife is the Spyderco Manix 2 is a far better slicer than is the Griptilian. In terms of piercing capability, the fine tip here that you've got on the Spyderco is much better than is the Griptilian. I am a little bit concerned with the tip strength of the Spyderco because one of my first EDC blades was a Kershaw leak, and that leak blade broke on me a number of times doing normal routine tasks, nothing nuts, but it would break on me. This blade, so far, I have done some fine tip stuff with it, and it hasn't snapped on me yet, so knock on wood, it hopefully won't happen to me. But this is a better slicer. For brute strength, I would say probably your Griptilian is going to be a little bit better. Finish. On each of these blades, they come with a satin finish. One is definitely shinier than the other, and I will say that the Griptilian is certainly a more polished blade. Fingerprinting happens on it, as you can see right here, but all it takes is just a swipe of the bandana and it's clean and clear. This blade cleans up very, very well, and I really like it for that. One of my gripes with the Manix 2 is that the blade finish is very blotchy. It's very hard for me to be able to show you here in this video. You kind of have to see it up close. I'm not sure if it has something to do with the heat treatment or whatever, but the blade finish almost in some lights kind of seems a little bit iridescent, sort of like there's oil on it. And you try to wipe it off and it just continues to look that way. Every once in a while there will be like shadows or something on it, and you got to try to wipe them out, and they don't come out so easy. So that's something I'm kind of looking into, maybe some different blade cleaners to see if I can get that to go away. But you know, you don't buy blades because they're pretty, or at least you probably shouldn't. It's really an issue of functionality. But yeah, this blade does have a little bit of a blotchy finish. Out of the box sharpness. I was rather disappointed with the out-of-the-box sharpness of the Benchmade Griptilian. Yeah, you could shave hair off of your arm and stuff, but it just wasn't as sharp compared to this. I mean, this was surgical razor sharp when I got it. Cut a couple lengths of hose with it for a while, and it dulled pretty quickly, but all it takes is just about 5 minutes on my Lansky system, and it's back to where it needs to be. The S30V steel I find is a lot easier to sharpen than is the 140 or 154 cm. I don't know if it's because 154 is a harder steel than S30V, but I will say that sharpening the Spyderco is a lot easier than the Griptilian. Any mistakes? There was a chip in the blade actually when I got this after I used it for a single day, and getting that chip to go away was rather painstaking, but it's gone now. So sharpening the S30V is much easier. Okay, so let's talk about which one I think you should probably buy, okay? There the handle scales that come on the Griptilian are just not up to snuff in terms of the materials you're going to get from the Manix 2. All told, I'm about $170 invested in this knife. It was $90 for the knife, and it was $80 for these scales, G10 scales on here. This blade is $90, and it comes with S30V steel, which is normally regarded as a more premium steel than 154 cm. It came with what I consider to be a better locking mechanism, full steel liners, and G10 handles. And all of that in the package for $90. Even taking all those things into consideration, I sort of like to still pick up the Griptilian more. Why is that? And I'm going to demonstrate that here pretty easily. This knife, stack it on top of this knife, the wideness in the pocket of the Spyderco is rather substantial. This knife is probably more functional for me, but if I had to probably choose, I would probably choose the Benchmade, simply because of its ease of carry in the pocket. I love both of these knives, but if I had to give it to one, I would say this is the one that I carry. Now, does that make sense in terms of the investment that I've made? No, it does not. This is a far better knife for the money, hands down. But I like this one. I don't know, maybe I've got some kind of emotional attachment to it because it's my first knife. But anyway, guys, so that's the two knives that I carry. As it is right now, I probably carry this one more, but that's just because it's newer and, you know, it's a new fun thing to play with. So anyway, guys, if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below. But if you're looking to pick up a knife, I would highly suggest either one of these. You won't be sorry with either one. So, guys, that's it for now. If I get any more knives, which I'm hoping to do at some point in time, maybe we'll have another knife review. But right now, this is Chris, signing off.